Welcome to Spiritual and Self-Care Sunday with Coach Kwanz. Each week we explore timeless principles that nurture faith, strengthen well-being, and encourage a healthier, more purposeful life. Today's reflection is called Remember the Good. Have you ever opened an old photograph and unexpectedly found yourself smiling? Perhaps you had forgotten the photograph existed. Maybe it was taken years ago. You recognize the place, you remember the people, and suddenly a moment that seemed buried somewhere in the past becomes vivid again. You remember the laughter. You remember how you felt. You remember what life was like during that season. Nothing new has happened. The photograph hasn't changed. The event happened years ago, yet something has changed within you. You remembered. And for a moment, remembrance awakened gratitude. Perhaps it was a photograph of a holiday with people you love. Perhaps it was a message from a friend who supported you during a difficult season. Perhaps you found an old journal and discovered something you had written when you were praying for circumstances to change. And then you realized something remarkable. The thing you were praying about back then is no longer the thing keeping you awake today. Life moved forward, God carried you through, and somehow you had forgotten. This is one of the strange things about being human. We can experience something deeply meaningful and still eventually stop noticing it. Yesterday's answered prayer can become today's normal life. Yesterday's breakthrough can become something we barely think about. Yesterday's kindness can disappear beneath today's responsibilities. Yesterday's achievement can be forgotten while we pursue the next one. Perhaps that is one reason Scripture speaks so often about remembering. Psalm 77 begins from a place that is far from cheerful. Asaph is distressed, he is troubled. He asks difficult questions. He wonders whether God's favor has disappeared. But then in Psalm 77 verses 11 to 12, something shifts. He says, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. I will ponder all your work and meditate on your mighty deeds. Notice what happens. Asaph does not pretend that his distress isn't real. He doesn't deny what he is feeling. He deliberately remembers. His circumstances may not have changed in that moment, but the evidence available to his attention has changed. Instead of allowing the present difficulty to tell the entire story, he remembers that there is more to the story. God has been faithful before. God has acted before. God has carried his people before, and remembrance gives him another perspective from which to view the present. Perhaps there is wisdom there for us. When life becomes difficult, the present can sometimes become enormous. Today's problem feels like the whole story. Today's disappointment occupies our attention. Today's uncertainty can make us forget yesterday's provision. That doesn't mean we should ignore the problem. It means the problem doesn't deserve exclusive ownership of our memory. There is goodness there too. There is kindness there. There is progress. There are people who helped us. There are prayers that were answered. There are challenges we survived. There are moments when we were stronger than we realized. And perhaps occasionally, we need to deliberately remember them. This is where remembrance can become a simple gratitude practice. You don't necessarily need a special journal. You don't need an elaborate routine. Sometimes you simply need a cue, an old photograph, a song, a place, a message, an object you kept, a journal entry, a certificate, perhaps even an old item of clothing, something that opens a door in the memory and says, remember this? Consider something as simple as looking through old photographs. Usually we scroll through photographs looking for something specific. But what if occasionally we did it intentionally? Not to escape the present, not because everything was better then, but simply to look for evidence of goodness. There is the birthday when everybody laughed. There is the trip you saved for. There is the friend you haven't thought about for a while. There is the family member whose presence was a gift. There is the first day at a job you once prayed to receive. There is a photograph of a version of yourself who was trying, learning, growing, and becoming. And perhaps there is gratitude hidden inside those photographs waiting to be remembered. The same can happen with our health journeys. Imagine finding an old photograph from a period when you were particularly fit. Perhaps you were leaner, stronger, more energetic, training consistently, eating well, feeling confident in your body. There are at least two ways to respond to that photograph. One response says, look at me now. I've lost what I had, and suddenly remembrance becomes comparison. But another response says, I built that. My body was capable of that. I remember the discipline that season required. I remember how good movement felt. I remember what consistency produced. And now the photograph isn't condemning you. It's teaching you. Perhaps it reminds you of habits that served you well. Perhaps it reminds you that progress is possible. Perhaps it simply gives you an opportunity to thank God for what your body was able to do during that season. The past hasn't changed, but the way we relate to it has. And this distinction matters because remembrance and rumination are not the same thing. Healthy remembrance does not require us to pretend that every memory is positive. Some chapters of life are painful, some photographs carry grief, some relationships ended, Some opportunities disappeared. Some seasons cannot be recreated. And sometimes looking backwards is not helpful at all. So the invitation isn't to endlessly revisit the past. The invitation is to become intentional about what we retrieve from it. Rumination can keep us circling the same experience without moving forward. Healthy remembrance can visit the past, receive something valuable, and return to the present. That distinction gives us a simple rhythm. Visit the memory, receive the gratitude, return to today. I think the final part matters just as much as the first two. Return to today, because remembrance should not make the present feel like an inferior version of life. The goal isn't to say those were the good old days as though goodness has finished. The goal is to say there was goodness there, and I am grateful, and now I return to the life God has given me today. Perhaps remembering a friendship makes you grateful enough to send that person a message. Perhaps remembering an answered prayer strengthens your faith regarding something you're praying about now. Perhaps remembering a healthy season encourages you to restart one habit that served you well. Perhaps remembering how someone supported you inspires you to support somebody else. Then the memory has done something beautiful. It has traveled forward, it has become gratitude, and gratitude has become action. There is another reason I think this practice matters. We are often very good at recording what is wrong. We remember embarrassing moments, mistakes, rejections, things we wish we had said differently. The mind can replay those experiences with remarkable clarity. But goodness deserves remembering too. The person who believed in you deserves remembering. The stranger who helped you deserves remembering. The teacher who encouraged you deserves remembering. The colleague who defended you deserves remembering. The friend who checked on you when nobody else did deserves remembering. The small victory nobody celebrated deserves remembering. The day you nearly gave up but continued anyway deserves remembering. And God's faithfulness deserves remembering. Deuteronomy chapter 8 gives a powerful warning about this. As Israel prepares to enter a season of abundance, Moses warns them not to forget the Lord when life becomes comfortable. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, he tells them to remember the Lord their God. That is fascinating. Sometimes we assume forgetting God happens only during hardship. But scripture also warns about forgetting during success, when the prayer has been answered, when the income has improved, when the body is healthier, when the crisis has passed, when the thing we once desperately wanted has become ordinary. Perhaps gratitude protects us from allowing blessings to become invisible through familiarity. Think about something in your life today that you once hoped for. Perhaps somewhere in your present life is something an earlier version of you would have considered an answer. We can become so accustomed to blessings that we stop experiencing them as blessings. Remembrance can restore perspective, not by making life perfect, but by helping us see more of what is already there. And perhaps this is where journaling can become useful. A journal doesn't only preserve thoughts, it preserves evidence. You may write something today that a future version of you will need to read. A prayer, a breakthrough, a moment of gratitude, a difficult decision, a small victory, a sentence about something God taught you. Months or years later, you may return to those words and realize how much has changed. If journaling isn't natural for you, perhaps photographs are enough, or a small gratitude folder on your phone, or a note where you occasionally record answered prayers, or meaningful messages you choose not to delete. The practice doesn't need to become complicated. The purpose is simply to make goodness easier to remember. And perhaps once a week, once a month, or whenever life feels especially heavy, you return to one of those reminders, not to escape, to remember. There is a beautiful humility in gratitude, because it reminds us that we did not arrive here entirely by ourselves. Someone encouraged us, someone taught us, someone opened the door, someone forgave us, someone prayed for us, someone gave us another chance. God provided, God protected, God sustained. Even our own achievements contain gifts we did not create ourselves. A body capable of adaptation, a mind capable of learning, opportunities, time, people, grace. Remembrance helps us recognize those things again. So perhaps this week, rather than searching immediately for something new to make you grateful, begin somewhere else. Remember something good. Find one photograph, one message, one journal entry, one achievement, one answered prayer, one person who was good to you, one season when your body surprised you with what it could accomplish, one moment when God carried you. Sit with that memory for a few minutes. Then ask 3 questions. What happened? What was good about it? And what can I thank God for today because I remembered it? Then, when you've received what the memory has to give, return to today because today needs you too. There are new memories still being formed. There are people around you now whose kindness you may one day remember. There are ordinary moments happening today that may eventually become photographs you treasure. There may even be prayers being answered gradually that you haven't recognized yet. So remember yesterday's goodness without overlooking today's. Visit the memory, receive the gratitude, return to today. Perhaps some blessings happen only once, but through remembrance, gratitude allows us to receive something of their goodness again. Thank you for joining me for this week's Spiritual and Self-Care Sunday with Coach Kwanz. May God help you remember His faithfulness, recognize the goodness woven through your story, and remain fully present for the life He has given you today. Until next time, take care and God bless.